I crashed through the entrance of my parents' Georgian-style residence that evening, my drenched clothing clinging to me as the overhead crystal fixtures momentarily blinded me. In their grand entryway, I stood dripping on imported tile while my bloodshot eyes surveyed the gathering where champagne bubbled against a backdrop of violin music. Mother noticed me immediately. Her welcoming expression vanished, replaced by a frozen mask as she withdrew from her elegantly dressed companions. She moved toward me in her burgundy gown, diamonds sparkling at her neck. "Rebecca, absolutely not. We're hosting." Her manicured fingers dug into my arm. "Trevor's celebration isn't the moment for whatever crisis you've brought." Father materialized beside her, tension visible in his jaw beneath his gray mustache. "Let's discuss this elsewhere," he muttered, guiding me toward his library while casting concerned glances at our curious observers. The carved walnut door shut firmly. I stood shaking on the oriental carpet, water pooling on the glossy hardwood. Mother's gaze tracked each drop as though I was defiling sacred ground. "Emma fainted at school this afternoon," I said, my voice fracturing. "They transported her to Seattle General." Father shifted uncomfortably. "Is she stable?" "No." The syllable hung between us like smoke. "She has a severe cardiac anomaly. The surgeon said without intervention within 48 hours, she might." My throat constricted around words too terrible to speak. Mother's hand went to her collar. "Goodness. Surely your coverage." "I'm uninsured currently," I whispered. "The company's been hemorrhaging money. I plan to purchase a policy next month after receiving payment from our major client." Father's expression hardened. "What amount are we discussing?" $95,000. I forced the numbers out. "I've exhausted every option. The hospital's payment arrangements cover barely 20%. The bank rejected my emergency financing application without assets to secure it." I dropped to my knees, something I'd promised myself never to do before them again. "I've never requested anything. Not when David lost his position. Not when our roof needed repairs. Not when I needed capital for my startup." My hands trembled as I reached for Mother's pressed slacks. "Please, save her. She's your only grandchild." Father's eyes found Mother's. A wordless exchange passed between them, one I'd witnessed countless times but never understood. Mother sighed, her posture deflating slightly. "We simply cannot, Rebecca. Trevor's ceremony is 12 weeks away. We've already obligated ourselves to covering everything. What possible expenses could?" "Always demanding attention from me, sister." Trevor's voice sliced through the room as he leaned against the doorframe, champagne glass dangling carelessly. His fiancée, Jessica, hovered behind him, her engagement ring catching light. "Not now, Trevor," I began, but Father interrupted. "We've already deposited $250,000 for the location, catering and vacation package," he explained as if discussing a sound business transaction. "Non-refundable commitments." My mind flashed to the hospital room I'd abandoned an hour earlier. Emma's tiny body disappeared beneath white linens, the breathing mask fogging with each strained breath. The colored pencil sketch clutched in her small hand, stick figures labeled Mama, Papa, me, Nana, and Pop Pop. Dr. Martinez's compassionate yet firm ultimatum: "We need payment verification by tomorrow midday to arrange the procedure." I stared at these strangers wearing my parents' features. Father checked his timepiece. Through the door, celebration sounds drifted inward. "Perhaps you should have exercised better planning," Mother whispered, adjusting her brooch. The family treasure she'd promised would someday be mine. "There are consequences for irresponsible financial management, Rebecca." I rose gradually, something crystallizing inside me with each passing moment. The desperation that propelled me here transformed into something arctic and sharp. "My daughter could die, and you're concerned about a celebration?" My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. Trevor snorted, swirling his drink. Always theatrical. Purchase better coverage next time. Some of us have legitimate plans for our lives. My hands shook as I reached for Mother's wrist. I unclasped the emerald bracelet, the one grandmother bequeathed her, the one she dangled as incentive for my childhood compliance. Take this back, I said, placing it in her palm and closing her fingers around it. I'll discover another way. Father cleared his throat. Rebecca, be sensible. I straightened my spine, shoulders squared, chin elevated. I've never seen things more clearly. Walking through the crowd of murmuring guests, I felt their stares boring into my back. Someone whispered, "Poor Richard and Patricia, that must be the problematic daughter." Another responded, "Such a disgrace, creating drama at Trevor's special evening." The evening air struck my face as I stepped outside, but I no longer felt the temperature. My phone vibrated with a text from David. "Any success?" I glanced back at the illuminated windows of my parents' estate. 6-year-old Emma's voice echoed in my thoughts. "Nana and Pop-Pop have the hugest house ever. Do they love us huge too?" I typed my response. "No, but we'll rescue her regardless. And I will never approach that door again." I paced our kitchen past midnight, the cordless phone pressed to my ear, my voice hoarse from hours of begging. The digital display's crimson numbers taunted me. 46 hours until Dr. Martinez's deadline. "Please," I whispered to the lending officer. "My daughter's survival depends on this procedure." "I apologize, Ms. Harper." Without collateral or improved credit scores, the line disconnected. Another refusal. I slumped against the appliance where Emma's colored pencil creations hung by letter magnets. Her newest artwork showed stick figures clasping hands beneath a golden sun. In the corner, she'd drawn a crimson heart with shaky letters. "I love Mommy." David entered the kitchen, his eyes hollow with fatigue. He placed a crumpled check on the counter. 8,000, he said quietly. Anderson finally purchased the Corvette. I stared at the check. David had restored that '69 Corvette across 3 summers, laboring weekends while I established my business. His father's graduation present when he turned 18. "David, you treasured that vehicle." He took my hand, his calloused thumb drawing circles on my palm. "I treasure Emma more." I added the check to our desperate collection. Our life savings, David's retirement account early withdrawal, the Corvette money. 72,000. Still 23,000 insufficient. I lowered my forehead to the counter. "It's inadequate." David's arms encircled my shoulders. "We'll discover a solution." The doorbell chimed at 6:13 in the morning. I stumbled to answer, still wearing yesterday's wrinkled clothing. The mortgage denial letter clung to my cheek, pulled free by static as I opened the entrance. Robert and Susan Harper stood on our stoop. David's parents. Robert's weathered face was somber beneath his faded baseball cap. Susan clutched a worn handbag against her floral house dress. "Robert, Susan." My voice cracked. "It's early." Robert cleared his throat. "May we enter?" In our living area, they perched awkwardly on the sofa's edge. Robert's rough hands fidgeted with his cap. Susan's eyes drifted to Emma's photograph on the mantel. Gap-toothed grin, strawberry blonde braids. David appeared from the bedroom, surprise crossing his face. "Mom, Dad, what brings you here?" "We learned what occurred," Robert said, his gruff voice softening. "Called your cell repeatedly." "Battery died," David mumbled, running fingers through his disheveled hair. Susan reached for her handbag. "How is our grandbaby?" "Stable," I answered, the medical terminology bitter on my tongue. "For now." Robert shifted, boots scuffing our worn carpeting. "We have the cottage in Oregon." I blinked, confused. "The cottage," their retirement dream. A one-bedroom structure on 5 acres of Douglas fir that Robert constructed with his own hands 2 decades ago. What about it? David asked. Robert exchanged a look with Susan. Sold it. Got a fair price. You what? David's voice rose. Dad, that cottage was your entire. No, Robert's eyes, the same deep brown as David's, held steady. Family is everything. Susan opened her handbag, withdrew an envelope, and placed it on our coffee table. 38,000. The room blurred as tears filled my vision. I stared at the envelope, unable to move. David knelt beside his mother. We cannot accept this. You can and you shall, Susan said firmly. This is what family does. The hospital waiting area smelled of disinfectant and stale coffee. I clutched Emma's stuffed bunny, its fur worn thin from years of bedtime comfort. The procedure began 3 hours earlier. David's hands trembled as he signed the final financial documents. The hospital administrator nodded, satisfied with our pieced-together payment. 72,000 from us, 38,000 from Robert and Susan. Less than 48 hours after my parents refused. Robert and Susan sat across from us, a thermos of homemade chowder between them. They'd barely spoken since arriving, just settled in for the prolonged wait with quiet determination. Hour 10 passed, then 12, 14. When Dr. Martinez finally emerged, surgical cap still on, my heart stopped. His tired eyes crinkled. She's going to survive. My phone buzzed a week later. A text from Trevor. Mom wants to know if Emma survived. Also, you're causing problems at the engagement celebration. I stared at the screen. Another text arrived. Dad told the Hendersons you were too reckless to afford proper coverage. My voicemail icon flashed. Richard's voice filled my ear. Your actions reflect poorly on this family's standing. I deleted it without hearing the remainder. The mail arrived that afternoon. Cream envelope, gold embossing. Trevor and Jessica's wedding invitation. Addressed only to Rebecca. No mention of Emma. No mention of David. In Emma's hospital room, Robert sat beside her bed teaching her to cast an imaginary fishing line. Her 4-bruised arm followed his movements. When you're recovered, he promised, we'll take you to actual water. Emma giggled. Can I catch a whale? Start with salmon, Robert winked. Progress from there. Susan bustled in with another container of homemade stew. She'd brought a different meal every day, filling our refrigerator with labeled containers of nourishment. David entered behind her, arms full of Emma's school materials. He'd been managing childcare, household responsibilities, and supporting my clients while I maintained hospital vigil. I watched them, this circle of love around my daughter. No designer labels or exclusive memberships. Just steadfast presence when it mattered most. The truth settled in my chest. Blood doesn't create family. Love does. Between Emma's treatments, I sketched new designs at her bedside. My employees visited with meals and updates on projects they'd covered during my absence. Clients sent flowers. Neighbors organized meal schedules. David's colleagues donated vacation hours so he could stay home longer. This small community wrapped around us like armor. I recorded each kindness in Emma's journal, proof that goodness exists beyond the walls of my parents' estate. As Emma slept, I made a vow to myself. I will never be vulnerable like this again. Not financially. Not emotionally. And when I rise from these ashes, I'll remember who was there to fan the flames of hope and who abandoned us to burn. The desk lamp cast illumination around my sketches as midnight approached one. My eyes burned. 3 cups of cold coffee formed a semicircle around my workspace, casualties of concentration. Through the doorway, Emma slept on the pull-out sofa, her small chest rising and falling beneath her favorite Supergirl pajamas, a gift from Robert after her procedure 4 months ago. I stretched my cramping fingers and glanced at the wall calendar. Red X's marching across the days. Mortgage payment 2 weeks overdue. Electric bill final warning. Design supplies charged to the credit card already maxed from hospital copayments. But we're still here. Still fighting. The scar on Emma's chest has faded from angry crimson to pale pink. Her laughter fills our apartment again. The nightmares about beeping monitors and oxygen masks have mostly stopped. For her anyway. On the drafting table, my designs for the Harrison Hotel's pitch swim before my tired eyes. Regional boutique chain, 7 locations, complete interior redesign. Budget, $1.8 million. Competition, 3 established firms with impressive portfolios and actual offices. Not kitchen tables doubling as workspaces. My phone buzzed. David's text read, "Don't stay up all night. They'd be foolish not to select you." I almost believed him. "You look like you need this more than me," Susan said, pressing a travel mug of coffee into my hands the next morning. She and Robert arrived at dawn, ready for grandparent duty while I prepared for the biggest pitch of my career. Robert was already on the floor with Emma, helping her build a fortress from couch cushions. His arthritis must be screaming, but he'd never complain. "What if I fail this?" I whispered to Susan, my voice catching. Her weathered hands framed my face. "Then you'll find another opportunity. But you won't fail." She straightened my blazer collar. "You remind me of the oak tree outside our first house. Storm knocked it sideways, but it grew back stronger. Different angle, but even more beautiful." Robert looked up from the fortress. "Show them what you've got, kiddo." Emma raced over, wrapping herself around my legs. "Make pretty buildings, Mommy." I dropped to one knee, holding her small shoulders. "I'll return before dinner. Grandpa's making his famous spaghetti," she said with solemn importance. I kissed her forehead, breathed in her little girl scent of strawberry shampoo and modeling clay, and stood to face the day. The Harrison Hotel's conference room intimidated with its wall of windows overlooking downtown Seattle. 5 executives in tailored suits examined my modest portfolio while I set up my presentation. My hands trembled slightly as I arranged material samples on the gleaming table. "Ms. Harper," the CEO began, "your firm is considerably smaller than the others we're considering." He glanced at my proposal. "In fact, I'm not seeing evidence of a firm at all. Just you." The room chilled by 10 degrees. I forced myself to meet his eyes. "Currently, yes. But that's about to change." A skeptical silence settled over the room. I took a deep breath and began. "Hotels aren't just places to sleep," I said, unveiling my concept boards. "They're people's shelters during life's biggest moments. The first night of honeymoons, family reunions, business triumphs, sometimes even grief." The marketing director's phone vibrated. She glanced at it, dismissed the notification. I continued despite the sinking feeling in my stomach. The difference between a forgettable stay and a memorable one isn't thread count or lobby size. It's whether a space feels like it was created for humans or for photographs. I revealed my designs room by room. Spaces with hidden reading nooks, family suites with thoughtful touches for children, business rooms with adjustable lighting that combats time zone fatigue. The financial officer checked his watch. Time for my final play. I pulled out photos of Robert and Susan's cottage before and after my redesign. Last year, my in-laws sold their cottage to help pay for my daughter's heart surgery after my parents refused to help. When my daughter recovered, I redesigned their new place as thanks. The room stilled. Even the financial officer looked up. I didn't just replace what they lost. I built what they deserve. A space that honors who they are. I gestured to the details. The custom fishing rod storage, the kitchen island sized for Susan's pie making, the window seat perfectly angled for Robert's birdwatching. That's what I do. I create spaces that remember the humans who inhabit them. The CEO leaned forward. Why do you deserve this contract, Ms. Harper? The question hung in the air. I thought of Emma in her hospital bed, of Robert with couch cushion fortresses, of David selling his vintage Corvette without hesitation. Because I've learned what matters, I answered simply. And it's not what most people think. The notification chimed while I was washing dinner dishes 3 days later. David stopped mid-sentence, watching my face as I checked my phone. Harrison Hotels is pleased to inform you we've accepted your proposal. Contract delivery tomorrow. 1.8 million initial phase. The phone slipped from my fingers. David caught it, read the screen, and let out a shout that brought Emma running from her bedroom. He lifted me off my feet, spinning me in circles while I sobbed and laughed simultaneously. Emma danced around us, caught in our celebration without understanding its source. We did it, I breathed into David's shoulder. We actually did it. 6 months later, I stood in the doorway of my actual office. Not a corner of the living room. Not a borrowed desk in someone else's building. Harper Design Studio, etched in frosted glass on the door. Behind me, 3 designers worked at their stations. The Portland expansion opens next month. For more hires pending. My phone buzzed with a text from Trevor. Heard about your success. Mom and Dad talking about reaching out. Thought you should know. I deleted it without responding. Package sat on my desk. Inside was a framed photo. Robert, Susan, David, Emma, and me on the porch of their new cottage. Twice the size of the one they sacrificed. My first major purchase after the Harrison contract. Another text arrived. Dad asking about family investment opportunity. For your information. I smiled, thinking of the magazine interview I gave yesterday. The journalist seemed particularly interested in how I built my business without family support. The phone rang. My assistant letting me know the Portland contractor was on line 1. Take a message, I told her. I'm heading home early for my daughter's birthday party. I gathered my things, looking once more at the photo on my desk. Robert and Susan would be waiting at our house, helping David with decorations. Emma's school friends would arrive at 4. Her real grandparents, as she calls them, have planned a treasure hunt in the backyard. Later, when cake has been eaten and presents opened, David found me on the porch steps. Everything okay? He asked, settling beside me. I looked at our home, filled with laughter and light, at the people who showed up when it mattered most. We built this together, I told him, taking his hand. All of us. My phone buzzed against the marble countertop of my kitchen. A notification from LinkedIn. I swiped it open, then froze. There it is. My face staring back at me from the digital cover of Business Innovator magazine. The headline reads, Rising from the Ashes. How Tragedy Sparked a Design Revolution. The knot in my stomach tightens, then releases. 3 years of work, blood, and tears captured in a single glossy image. David came up behind me, his hands warm on my shoulders. It's real, he whispered. It's real, I echoed, my voice catching. I scrolled down to the pull quote they've highlighted in bold, my own words spoken during the interview without flinching. My own parents let my daughter suffer for a party. That's when I realized blood doesn't define family. The truth sits there, undisguised and raw. No pseudonyms. No vague references. Just the unvarnished reality of that rainy night when my parents chose Trevor's wedding over Emma's life. Any regrets? David asked, his thumb tracing circles on my shoulder blade. Not one. By afternoon my phone wouldn't stop ringing. The article had been shared over 20,000 times. Business influencers I'd admired for years were praising my integrity in the face of impossible choices. 3 podcast invitations arrived before lunch. Mom, why is your picture everywhere? Emma asked, her small finger pointing at my laptop screen where another share notification popped up. I lifted her onto my lap, her healthy heart beating against mine. "Remember how I told you that sometimes stories help other people feel brave?" She nodded, solemn. At 9, she understands more than I sometimes wish she did. Well, I told our story. The first hint of fallout came from an unexpected source. Margaret Phillips, who sits on the same charity board as Patricia, called me directly. "I don't know if I should tell you this," she started, voice lowered as if someone might overhear. "The Harpers didn't come to the spring fundraiser. Richard claimed they had another engagement, but Catherine saw them pull up to the country club, then turn around and leave when they spotted the Andersons." I said nothing, letting her continue. "Rumor has it their furniture store has lost 3 corporate accounts in the last month. People talk, Rebecca." And after that article, I thanked her for the call, keeping my voice neutral. But after hanging up, I didn't feel the rush of satisfaction I'd imagined. Just a hollow sort of completion, like turning the final page of a book you've waited years to finish. A text from Jessica, Trevor's wife of 2 years, arrived next. "Just read your story. Trevor never told me. Is it really true?" 2 days later, while reviewing blueprints for our Phoenix expansion, my assistant interrupted with news from David's cousin who works at Trevor's firm. "He didn't get the promotion," she said, eyes wide. Apparently his boss read the article and questioned his character and judgment. "Trevor threw a fit, accused you of sabotaging him." I looked around my growing office. The team of 16 designers working at their stations. The wall of awards for our healthcare facility designs. The framed mission statement about creating spaces that heal. None of this built on vengeance. All of it constructed on the foundation that crisis revealed. By summer, our company opened offices in Phoenix and San Diego. The feature on Rise and Shine America focused not on family drama but on our commitment to hiring single parents and providing full health care from day one of employment. "Your health insurance policy costs more than industry standard," the interviewer pointed out. "Doesn't that cut into your profits?" I thought of Emma's scar, a thin white line down her chest. Some costs are investments, not expenses. The Heart Foundation's first fundraiser raised enough for 12 children's surgeries. Robert gave a tearful speech about second chances, his weathered hands gripping the podium. Susan snapped photos of everything, her pride radiating brighter than the ballroom chandeliers. Our new home sits on 3 acres just outside the city. 6 bedrooms, a studio for my design work, and a west wing built specifically for Robert and Susan. The moving trucks had barely left when Emma raced through the house, discovering each new room with gasps and giggles. "I get to see Grandma and Grandpa every day," she shouted, running back to hug Robert's legs as he arranged books on a shelf. David watched from the doorway, arms crossed, eyes soft. Later he found me on the back porch and handed me a glass of wine. "You built this," he said simply. "All of it." "We built it," I corrected him, leaning into his solid presence. The news about Trevor arrived through Jessica herself, standing at my office door without an appointment. "I filed for divorce yesterday," she stated, twisting the diamond ring on her finger. "After I read your article, I started seeing things differently. The way he talked about his colleagues, his contempt for anyone struggling. Then I found messages to a waitress." She shook her head. "Your story gave me courage." A month later, a business newsletter reported that Harper Furnishings had filed for bankruptcy protection. The next day, a realtor friend sent a listing. My parents' Georgian mansion with its marble foyer and crystal chandelier. The asking price nowhere near its value. Subject line: closure. I deleted the email without opening it. The voicemail started in October. First from Patricia, her voice tight and controlled despite the circumstances. Then from Richard, less composed with each message. I listened to each one once, then erased them. watching the notifications disappear one by one, until the last one left at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. "Rebecca, please." Richard's voice cracked. "We have nowhere else to turn." Played it twice. The man who checked his watch while I begged for my daughter's life, now begging for my attention. I set the phone down and walked to the window, watching the autumn leaves spiral to the ground. My finger hovered over the callback button. Sunlight sliced through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office, casting long shadows across Italian marble. I adjusted the black leather briefcase on my desk, centering it perfectly between the crystal paperweight and my fountain pen. The weight of what's inside doesn't match its sleek exterior. "Ms. Harper," my assistant's voice broke through the intercom. "Your parents have arrived. Send them in." My voice sounded steadier than I felt. The double doors opened and I barely recognized the two people who entered. Dad's silver hair had thinned. His shoulders stooped beneath his discount department store blazer. Mom clutched her knockoff handbag, her once perfect makeup applied with a shaky hand. Their eyes darted around my office, taking in the minimalist furniture, the views of downtown Seattle, the evidence of everything they're not anymore. "Thank you for seeing us, Rebecca." Dad attempted his boardroom voice, but it cracked around the edges. "You've done quite well for yourself." Mom nodded too quickly. "The magazine features were lovely." I gestured to the chairs across from my desk. They sat in unison, the choreography of the desperate. Dad cleared his throat, leaning forward with hands clasped. The same posture he used when negotiating with suppliers. Family should stick together in difficult times. "We're in trouble, sweetheart." Mom's voice wavered. "The bank is foreclosing on the house. We owe almost $160,000. The economy hasn't been kind to traditional furniture stores." Dad's eyes fixed on a point just past my shoulder. "Online retailers have changed everything." "Your success is remarkable," Mom added, forcing brightness into her tone. "We always knew you had potential." The rehearsed compliment hung between us. "If you had just explained how serious Emma's condition was," Dad said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "we might have understood better." It happened so fast, and with Trevor's engagement that night. My gaze shifted to the framed photographs on my desk. Emma in her hospital bed, small fingers clutching the stuffed bunny Robert gave her. The heart monitor trackers still visible on her tiny wrist. Another frame held Robert and Susan at Emma's kindergarten graduation, their weathered faces beaming. Beyond them stood 3 crystal awards from the Children's Heart Foundation I established last year. 3 years, 2 months and 14 days, I said. They exchanged glances. "That's how long it's been since the night of Trevor's engagement party." Dad shifted in his seat. "Rebecca, it was raining. I came to you soaking wet. My shoes squeaked on your marble floor." My voice remained calm, factual. "Mom, you said, we simply can't, Rebecca. Trevor's ceremony is 12 weeks away." Her face paled. "I don't think those were my exact." "Dad, you explained that you'd already spent $250,000 on Trevor's wedding. Non-refundable commitments." His jaw tightened. "Now that's not." I reached for my phone, tapping the screen before setting it on the desk. Richard's voice filled the room. "Rebecca, your irresponsible financial decisions aren't our problem. Trevor manages his money properly. Perhaps you should take notes instead of asking for handouts. It reflects poorly on this family's reputation." The recording ended. Silence stretched between us. "Did you ever once visit Emma in the hospital?" "Yes." Mom's gaze dropped to her lap. Dad's throat worked soundlessly. David's parents sold their cottage, their retirement dream, to help save their granddaughter. Robert sat in that waiting room for 14 hours straight. Susan learned to change Emma's bandages and monitor her medication. They showed up. I stood, my palms flat against the cool surface of my desk. Do you know what Emma asked me after she recovered? Why don't Nana and Pop-Pop love me like Grandma Susan and Grandpa Robert? Mom's mascara smeared as tears tracked down her cheeks. With steady hands, I slid the briefcase across the desk toward them. Take it, I said, and leave. From this moment on, I'm no longer your daughter. Dad's fingers trembled as he unlatched the case. Inside, neatly stacked bills filled every corner. 160,000, I told them. Exactly what you need. Not a penny more. Rebecca, Mom started. This isn't for forgiveness, I cut her off. It's freedom. Mine. They stood slowly, Dad clutching the briefcase like a life preserver. Their reflections distorted in the polished marble as they walked to the door, shoulders bent with the weight of their shame. When the doors closed behind them, I remained standing until the sun dipped below the skyline, painting my office in amber and shadow. My fingers brushed across Emma's photo, then Robert and Susan's. For years, I carried the weight of their rejection like stones in my pockets, dragging me under. Not anymore. It's finally over, I whispered to the empty room. And for the first time since that rainy night, I felt the truth of those words in my bones. Not a weight lifted. Chain broke. I watched Robert flip burgers on the grill, his weathered hands guiding Emma's smaller ones on the spatula. She squealed with delight as flames leaped up when the patty turned. That's it, kiddo. You've got the touch, he said, ruffling her hair. The late afternoon sun spilled across our backyard, casting long shadows over the picnic table where Susan and David arranged plates, napkins, and condiments with easy familiarity. Their laughter carried across the lawn, a soundtrack I once thought belonged only in movies about other people's lives. Mom, Grandpa says I'm the best burger flipper in 3 states. Emma called out, her voice strong and clear. No trace of the fragile whisper that haunted hospital corridors 2 years ago. Only 3. I called back, reaching for the lemonade pitcher. I'd say at least 5. David caught my eye across the yard and winked. The smile lines around his eyes deepened, telling a story of weathered storms and unexpected sunshine. The garden gate swung open as the neighbors arrived with a homemade apple pie. Our small gathering swelled with voices and movement, chosen family expanding in concentric circles of warmth. Later, while Robert served ice cream, Emma tugged at my sleeve. She thrust a paper into my hands, crayon colors bright against the white background. I made us, she announced. 5 figures stood hand in hand beneath the yellow sun. David, me, Emma in the middle, Robert and Susan flanking us. Each face bore a wide rainbow smile. It's beautiful, sweetheart. My finger traced the drawing. Emma's brow furrowed. Lily at school has 2 grandmas and 2 grandpas. How come I only have 1 set? The question caught in my throat. I knelt to her level, meeting her eyes. Those eyes so like mine. Family isn't always about who shares your blood, I said, choosing words with the care of someone who knows their weight. Sometimes it's about who chooses to love you no matter what. Her 7-year-old wisdom considered this. Like how Grandpa Robert taught me to fish in my hospital bed. Exactly like that. She nodded, satisfied, and ran off to help Susan serve pie. David handed me an envelope that arrived in today's mail. Jessica's return address surprised me. Inside, a card thanked me for the foundation grant funding her new therapy practice. She mentioned Trevor struggling but finally facing his mistakes. My parents live in a small apartment now, she wrote. Their mansion long gone. The mention stirred nothing in me. Neither satisfaction nor sorrow. I watched my company's summer picnic set up in the park across the street. 50 employees and their families gathering under banners announcing full healthcare coverage for all. 3 scholarship recipients from our design program helped arrange tables, their backgrounds mirroring my own struggle, but their futures holding more promise. From the porch steps, I observed Emma at the piano Robert bought her last Christmas. Her fingers, once tethered to 4 lines, now danced across keys. The heart monitor that once tracked her survival sits in a memory box upstairs, a reminder of what almost was and what is. My gratitude journal lay open beside me. Today's entry simply read, "I have everything that matters." Golden light bathed all of us as the sun began its descent. Not the cold gleam of wealth, but the warm glow of enoughness. I once thought revenge would feel like victory, the moment my parents realized what they'd lost. But true peace came from building something meaningful instead of destroying what hurt me. The greatest revenge wasn't in their downfall, but in creating happiness they couldn't touch. My gaze swept over this mismatched, perfectly complete circle. Family isn't who owes you, it's who shows up,